The Honeycomb Alpha flight controls are one of the latest yoke options which have come to the market, and Honeycomb has a mission to create affordable flight simulation hardware. This yoke is awesome. Honeycomb has a mission to create affordable flight simulation hardware, and these flight controls are one of the latest options that we've had come to the market. If there was ever an example of the difference between the word cheap and affordable, this is it. The Honeycomb Alpha flight controls are not cheap. Nothing about them is cheap. The fact that the mechanical engineering put into this yoke was provided by a company that develops FAA-approved high-end flight simulation controls, which are used by professionals in flight training, certainly is not cheap. The fact that this thing comes with most of the buttons you'd want to include in your desktop flight simulator isn't cheap. The fact that every interface on the flight controls is programmable isn't cheap. They even came up with a unique mounting design that provides more than one option for securing it to the desk. At $250, it's not cheap. But holy crap, this is the most bang for the buck I've seen from a flight simulator piece of equipment in ever. But is it worth switching to? And if you're looking for a starter yoke, is this the one? Honestly, yes, but like with everything, there's more to it than just that. Flight simmers have largely been given the shaft when it comes to quality accessories for our passions. Our options were basically to buy a relatively cheap yoke from essentially a toy manufacturer, and the product quality does reflect it. Or we'd have to spend literally thousands of dollars to get quality flight instruments, which are typically found in FAA-certified flight simulators. There was no in-between. Some companies came out to compete with Logitech on the low end, but that was just more low-end, hunks of plastic. It just felt like toys. But this isn't a toy to most of us. This is a passion. And it's about dang time we got something to help bridge the gap between the existing players. The Alpha Flight Controls yoke and switch panel is targeting simmers, flight students, and pilots. If all you want is something to yank on to make your virtual airplane move, you can save $100 and buy something else. But if you want to approach what it feels like to fly a plane, then this is much more up your alley. The yoke has a full 180-degree rotation, no center detent, a switch panel, and buttons on the handles which are all programmable. The yoke offers some unique features too, like the pitch resolution can be as detailed as 1 in a thousandth.
That's 1 part in 1,000. Yeah, it's operating in thousandths. This thing is not down to byte level discretion, which is 1 in 256 or 1 in 512. It's twice the res of that or 4 times the res of that. Our resolution is down to parts in 1,000, to 1 part in 1,000.
It also has A/B trim buttons, which are more realistic to a real-world aircraft and approach some flight safety things that exist in the real world that usually we don't see in sim hardware. And it's cool to see more real-world stuff be a part of our sim hardware. And also, and I wish this wasn't a unique feature, but it's USB Type-C. And everything needs to be USB Type-C. Seriously, everything. Other flight controls out there require special proprietary connectors, or if they're not proprietary, they still require you to connect to each other. Like SATEC has those, I think they're serial connectors that plug into the central hub unit and everything has to plug in through there. Not here. It's just a USB connection. The feature list is pretty standard. It has a 180-degree yoke rotation, no center detent, 5-position ignition switch. The ergonomics feel good. It feels relatively accurate compared to a real aircraft, maybe a little lighter, but just a little. The switch panel has a master, alternator, avionics, and light switches. There are 13 buttons on the yoke, including elevator trim, yaw trim, hat switch, radio push-to-talk, and autopilot disconnect. And there's unfortunately no throttle quadrant yet. And honestly, I think it's probably worth waiting for the throttle quadrant. I mean, just look at this thing. I've seen some complaints about a dead zone, and some people have shown the dead zone in software. The thing is, I can tell you, I don't know if this has been improved, but when using it actually in flight, the dead zone feels realistic. It feels almost deliberate. I don't see a dead zone to my feel. It doesn't feel like there's a dead zone. So if there is technically one, I almost think it belongs there. I don't know why I'm really saying that, because I don't feel a dead zone, but if it exists, everything about this yoke feels deliberate. And you should be able to see in this example that when I make these small movements on the yoke, you see the yoke in the virtual airplane move with me. I don't think there's much of a dead zone here. Here's the deal. I desperately want to complete my flight sim setup because Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 is coming out soon. It's super tempting to go and buy a Satec throttle quadrant, but I know I just have to replace it once Honeycomb comes out with theirs. I mean, seriously, look at it. What I'm saying is I have been so blown away by the quality and feel of this yoke that I'm going to wait for it. And it's not even a tough question. Honeycomb has clearly disrupted the market with this yoke in terms of quality and price point. At $250, you're getting quality that you only start to have competitors with once you start approaching $1,000. And they would be lucky to come with a single push-to-talk button. I think Michael Brown said it best here.
If you're looking for the item that's the best thing for the money, then the Honeycomb makes the best sense. Yes, it costs $250, but it comes with a switch panel. And if you took a Logitech and you added a switch panel to it, it would come out to about $250-ish.
If you're on the fence, get off of it. It's worth reminding yourself that this thing is only a little more expensive than a typical hour in a Cessna 172 with an instructor. The value you gain from this is tremendous, and the fun it brings is immeasurable. If you buy this yoke, or if you have it already, let me know what you think about it in the comments. Also, feel free to leave any questions you may have that I might have missed covering in the video in the comment section. See ya.